AJL is a foundation that serves Colorado youth and families, and we do that via our direct investing, impact investing, and our grant making.
First is through grant making, which is about anywhere between 5 to 10% of our assets that go out the door each year. We use a participatory grant making process where we bring together all stakeholders affected by our grant making, so families and youth, community organizers, folks who work in nonprofits, and then across those three areas are diverse across race, gender, sexual orientation, geographic location, age, as well as cross-sector representation. The second portion of our funding goes out the door through direct investments, which are program-related investments and mission-related investments. And currently we have just under $1 million out in 4 different types of investments in that bucket. Low interest loans or below market loans to nonprofits. We've got private equity in there. We've got social impact securities, and then we've also got a guarantee in that bucket.
A lot of foundations won't invest in startups or organizations that are grassroots or who don't have a track record. And we really look at what is the potential of impact for these organizations, small businesses, local-owned businesses, and nonprofits that are grassroots and ran by community for community.
Our goal is both the impact, using that sort of bucket, PRIs and MRIs, for positive social impact, but then also to kind of demonstrate for the field different ways and investment structures where we can have impact and kind of just demonstrate that and take the fear out of doing some of those types of investments. And then the third way we work toward our mission is impact investing, using up to 95% of our assets toward impact alongside financial return. And initially, we started out very similar to a traditional foundation. We had 5% of our funding going to grant making, and the other 95% was traditionally invested. I came on board in 2014, and that's when I became executive director, and that's when I first sat down with our financial advisors, and they explained to me that a foundation is 5% goes out the door in grant making and 95% is traditionally invested. Fresh out of a career in communications and marketing, all I could think of around the 5% of assets being put toward your mission was if you have an organic product on shelves and only 5% of the ingredients are actually organic, that's greenwashing, highly unethical. And so if only 5% of our assets are going toward our mission, how are we doing anything but charity washing? Putting $5 toward the problems and then putting $95 toward the root causes that we're trying to address with those $5. And so our understanding and the way we see it is that if you are not intentionally investing for positive social impact in the capital markets, then it's likely that we were funding a lot of the root causes that we were trying to fix with the 5% on the grant making side. We set out on a request for a proposal process, or an RFP, to find an impact-oriented advisor. And they really have truly been the brains behind all of this. And if we did not have the right partner in our financial advisor, there's no way we would have been able to make this much progress, especially in this short of time.
So when we met AJL, we sat down with them to facilitate a process to determine how they wanted to define impact across their entire portfolio. And we came up with a plan to use negative screening in the portfolio, so exclusionary screening, to use environmental, social, and governance integration throughout the entire portfolio, to look at some thematic investments that directly contribute to solutions with regards to sustainable communities, reduced inequalities, and then also with a focus on climate, and then looking at diverse managers to provide access to capital within the portfolio. 58% of their managers are diverse, and then with a call out to 10%, at least 10%, to Black, Latinx, and Native American, recognizing that those are the communities that are most underrepresented within the financial services industry, and currently their portfolio is 17% invested with Black, Latinx, and Native American managers.
In the pie chart, you'll see the gray slice is our philanthropy, so that's anywhere between 5 and 10% that goes out the door in grant making each year.
As the community investments manager, when I look at any investments that we're going to do, I always look at how does it impact the community and how does community feel about it, and really understanding how our investment dollars will impact not just the organization, but the community at large.
The yellow slice, you'll see we call this Impact First, and these are our PRIs and MRIs, or program-related investments and mission-related investments.
A couple of examples of PRIs that we have done are the SistaBiz Loan Fund, which is a grant fund for Black women entrepreneurs, one of the first in Colorado that has been created. We've also invested in the Equity Project, which is an equity consultant, a DEI consultancy that works really for racial equity all over the nation.
The light blue slice of the pie is our thematic lens investments, and these are investments in funds where social and/or environmental needs offer commercial growth opportunities for market rate return.
So when you're thinking about the issues with regards to sustainable communities and reduced inequalities, you're thinking about affordable housing. You're thinking about lower pollution. You're thinking about economic development and community development. You're thinking about access to capital and financial inclusion. So to that end, we are invested in a public equity fund that is focused on racial, gender, economic, and climate justice. So really screening out companies that do not align with those values. We're looking at an investment that is focused on sustainable agriculture, clean energy, wastewater pollution, really thinking about how do we lower pollution, how do we support climate action.
And then we have the orange slice, which is cash impact. And these are cash deposits that sit at financial institutions that then invest the money in underserved, underrepresented communities through CDFIs or community development financial institutions.
We really were excited to invest in CNO and the Native American Bank, knowing that they were owned, operated, and run by their communities.
And then the rest of our portfolio is ESG integrated, and we also have exclusionary screens on the remainder of our portfolio.
I would start with really defining what ESG is. The way environmental, social, and governance is measured is what is material risk factor to a company. If a soft drink company is being rated on environmental, social, and governance factors, they will be rated on water stress, product carbon footprint, they'll be rated on nutritional opportunities, health and safety, and then all governance factors. What they will not be rated on is labor management, controversial sourcing, things of that sort. So if you were to have a company, a highly rated ESG company in your portfolio, a soft drink company, they would have a lower water stress and a better carbon footprint. We're really thinking about, okay, so how do we reduce the risk in the portfolio and improve the likelihood that we have better environmental, social, and governance outcomes? So as a result, AJL's portfolio has a lower carbon footprint than the overall benchmark. It has a higher percentage of female board of directors. It has a lower fossil fuel reserves than the entire benchmark, and it has no labor controversies. There's not enough transparency and measurement, but from a starting place, it is a good starting place to think about, okay, how do I at least mandate that the companies that are in my portfolio are thinking about their risk factors with regards to environmental, social, and governance factors.
So you'll see on AJL's website that we do report out on our portfolio quarterly on the website, and that's for two reasons. The first is really accountability and transparency to show to the communities that we serve.
I think all foundations should have to be 100% open about where their money is and what it's doing.
The second reason that we report out on financial performance as well as impact performance is to contribute our learnings to the field, so that if there are other foundations that want to go down this road, it's going to look different for everyone, but there's some sort of roadmap for them to get started and see what it could potentially look like.
When you have to report out where your money is and what your money is doing, money will move differently.
AJL and Intrinsic really came together to think about, okay, what are the tools out there that we can use to evaluate impact, recognizing that there's no standard metric, tools are evolving, measurement is evolving over time. First and foremost, we use MSCI as our ESG rating tool to look at how are we doing within our public equities with regards to our carbon footprint, labor controversies, women on boards. And so we started there. And then we said, okay, we have an entire portfolio. How do we look at the entire portfolio? We started to use the impact management project framework. That framework focuses on effect and contribution. So the effect starts with the lowest effect, which is just avoiding harm in your portfolio. Then secondly, thinking about how do I benefit stakeholders, so the broader community. And then thirdly, thinking about how do I contribute to solutions, recognizing that when you're building a portfolio that is invested in traditional companies trying to achieve a market return, you're going to have a blend of the three effects. You're not going to have 100% of your portfolio contributing to solutions because you're going to want a broad, diversified portfolio. Once you have that effect, you then focus on what is the contribution that I'm having with my portfolio. So one, am I signaling that impact matters? Just from basic, having an ESG manager, you're signaling that impact matters to those companies. Two, are you engaging actively? So are you thinking about when I am invested in that company, am I engaging with that company to make sure that they are focused on the environment, they are focused on all stakeholders, the community, employees, customers, as well as the broader planet. Then three, are you thinking about how can I invest in new opportunities that grow underserved or undersupplied markets? And then four, how do I supply flexible capital? So that is capital that probably will not be market rate. It'll take a while for you to get back over time, but you're providing an investment the opportunity to create a broader impact. So you're really looking at the effect and then the contribution. So we have this framework, and so we came together and we said, okay, so how do we use this framework to create something numerically? So we used the effect, 1, 2, 3, and then the contribution, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we added them together. And then we added in a diversity component. In all total, you could have a portfolio score of 10. You're gonna have a portfolio that is somewhere, maybe, if you're really intentional, between 4 and 6. Christy's always trying to take me to 10. We're always trying to keep with the investment objective of CPI plus 5. So we're somewhere in the 5, but working on that.
We can now generate an impact score each quarter to help give us a baseline understanding of what is happening from an impact standpoint in our portfolio. Before, conversations were kind of nebulous and a little bit fluffy. This looks good, this impact feels good, it sounds good, but what is it actually doing, and how do we quantify that, or how do we just have an understanding of what's happening across the portfolio?
Since we have been working together, AJL, since inception, since June of 2019, performance has been 9.9%. And this is as of March 31, 2022. So even with the downdraft we've seen in the first quarter, AJL has made its investment objective of CPI plus 5. Foundations have that capital that can create that change, that can really think about growing new and underserved parts of the market, that can think about providing access to capital in a different way than other organizations have.
One of the key differences for our board is understanding fiduciary duty, not just to be investing for growing our assets, but we think our fiduciary duty, that definition also includes taking responsibility for what those assets are doing in the world. And so we really see impact that's generated by our assets as part of our fiduciary duty and our commitment to fiduciary duty.
For foundations really thinking about embarking on a journey of impact investing, first and foremost, it's a journey. Your journey won't look the same as any other organization because you have a different mission. And so your journey needs to match your organization and your mission. When getting started, 100% around education, really thinking about how do we educate both the investment committee, the board, all of our stakeholders so we're using common language and so we understand what investment strategies we can use throughout the entire portfolio.
This field is evolving so quickly. It's a completely different place, even from when we began in 2017, 2018. There's so many resources. So joining groups that are doing the work, building those relationships, and just really learning from other foundations as well, who may be a little bit further down the road.
All the data is out there, all the studies are out there. Now it's time to take action once you really understand.
We can harness the power of the capital markets to create the change in the world we want to see